I want to explain how I'm going to create the files to be passed to the RIP system from the Cobra system. First off, if I am going to pass files, if I go to my close screen, which is an accounting close, and I look at the current period, invoice closed should be status closed for a particular billing entity before I pass it to RIP. I don't have to have everything closed, but for those that I'm actually going to pass to RIP, I want to make sure that status is closed. If I want to create the RIP feed, I'm going to come over to this page, and what I'm going to show now is creating the manual RIP feed as opposed to auto processing them through. So to create the auto RIP feed, I'm going to select a file to come down, or a billing entity I should say, to come down. So I'm going to pick 0765. Now I've got a different options here to do my my downloads. First off, if the accountant is just testing things, then they're either going to select, they're definitely not going to select with meta, because that's just a control file that gets passed to RIP. But they're definitely want to include with headers, because if they're going to use the output file, it will have column headers. So I'll show you that download. They also may or may not check the click support to see whether they actually want to see those support files or not. I'll turn that off because I just want to exemplify the headers coming down. So when that comes down, then I'm going to go to the download folder on my machine. And I can open the one file I have that comes down. And you'll see that the first row has all the column headers. So you can take a look and understand the data better without having to impute or infer or look up different column headers and information of what it means. If I'm going to create files that I'm going to want to load directly in, so again, I want to make sure that the status of those are closed. But now if I pick that same file and I'm going to pick without headers, because to load a file into RIP, it cannot have that first row with headers, I'm definitely going to pick support, and I also am going to need to pick meta. Now when I click the download file here, I'm going to get two files, one starting with ACT, which has the transactions like the one we just looked at, the one MET, which is a meta file, which is the summary information so Cobra RIP can check itself on the load. And then lastly, which comes down, is a zip file. So if I look at my downloads now, I have the ACT file, the MET file, and the SUP file, which is the support. Now I'll extract this and open it up so we can take a look at what's in that. So I've extracted those files down, and I've just opened up the support file. And if I open up that support file, what you'll see is the support for the amount. So let me go pull up on top of this one the actual transaction file as well. So here's the transaction file, and in this case I only have one transaction that comes over for 0765 from Cobra to RIP for this particular period, and I note the amount is $2,720.08 US dollars. And then I also have an indicator here, which is a description. So this is a rev share transaction. It comes down with R underscore and then a number. Now this indicates which transaction line it is. And when I look at this particular file, if I look at my extract of my zip file, you'll see that it is all named accordingly C25838, which corresponds with 25838. The R in front of the number in the feed itself defines whether it defines the authorizations. So what this one tells me is the recipient, which is what the R stands for, is going to have to authorize, and that the originator is automatically signed off already. If it is O, it actually works the other way around. So the recipient is signed off and the originator actually has to go in and do the authorization. Everything coming from Cobra is going to be R underscore, because the recipient is always going to have to authorize, and the originator is going to be automatically authorized by loading the feed. And if you're going to do a manual feed to RIP, that is all that is required. So I have my support file, I have my meta file, and I want to pass the zip. I don't want to use this extracted. I just did that so I could open up the file. I want to pass these three files. I want to explain everything that's in this name. So the first three letters tell me what the file is for: the meta file, the transaction file, and the support file. That's what the first three characters tell me. The rest of them tell me the period in which I'm computing for, or the transactions come for, and then I'll have the billing entity. If there are multiple billing entities, it will tell me the smallest billing entity dash the largest billing entity to let you know there's a range in there. It doesn't list every one of them because obviously I could have quite a list depending on what I pull down at one time. And then I get the year, month, day, and time of the download of the file. So I can create these one after the other, and I don't have to worry about any conflicts on overlapping files or controlling the naming of the file from that perspective. They're always going to be unique. So once I have these files down, what do I do with them? I'm going to get rid of the support file because that's not part of what I'm using. Now I'm going to take these files, and then they would be passed to whoever is doing the upload in the RIP system. And there's a mechanism with RIP that they're put in a file, and that makes them accessible to RIP. So that's where all three of these files go. They go in there. Now, when we get to the RIP system, which we'll go to next, we will take a look at the ACT file and selecting the ACT file and the SUP file as part of that process.